Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma and today I want to show you the new Fulgrim Transfigured model that I just got from Games Workshop. And I have never really actually worked with Forge World models before, so I thought I would take this opportunity to make a video showing you what it looks like straight out of the box and then give you my thoughts about cleaning it up and building it. And then lastly, I also want to show you exactly how big it is compared to other GW models, because at least I thought just going by the photos that they showed off at the showed off at the Nova Open, I think. Well, just judging from the photos, it was really difficult for me to tell exactly how big it is. So at the end of the video, I'll also show it next to some other models, so it might be a little bit easier for you to actually make up your mind about how big this thing is, and also perhaps you know, what it would be like transporting it. I think that might be the big hurdle for a lot of people, but I don't know. Perhaps you have a brilliant idea as to how, you know, coming up with an idea for how to transport it. I'm still trying to, I'm still trying to figure that part out myself. But anyways, let's get to the unboxing. So the model comes to you, as you can see, in a completely ordinary white box. It just says Forge World outside, and then it has a building instruction and then the sort of resin parts of the model inside, as you can see here. And I gotta say, I was just slightly disappointed just with the box. I know it doesn't matter at all, but it's just, I mean, the boxes for 40k and Age of Sigmar, they have like a lot of lovely artwork on them, and this was just a white box. But I mean, it doesn't really matter, I know. So this is what it looks like straight out of the box, and of course this is resin and not plastic, so it doesn't come on a sprue. It comes more like on these big chunky resin bits from the mold, I guess, and then you have these sort of pipes down to the model itself where they poured in the resin. And the first thing I noticed when looking at these parts of the model here is that you can tell that it's a different material than plastic, and the details are just, they are a little bit sharper, and you can do some things with resin, I guess, that you can't really do with plastic. It is just a little bit sharper and everything is a little bit more clear, and it just looks completely, utterly gorgeous. I mean, this model is beautiful. Then there is also a manual telling you how to assemble the model. And I think it's, well, I mean, it's obviously nice that they have included one, but I don't think this one is nearly as easy to follow as the ones you might get in a box of models for 40k or Age of Sigmar. Some of the instructions are really easy to follow and some of them are not. I particularly had troubles when building the wings, figuring out what kind of spikes went where. So I think it's not as easy to follow. It can be done, but you need to be quite level-headed when you're building this and not be in a hurry. I have heard from my friends at the gaming club that if they are buying a model from Forge World, they will at least expect to spend a day or two just cleaning up the model and assembling it. And I thought, yeah, I mean, it can't be that time consuming. I mean, the model is not that big, but I just have to say, yeah, it has taken me a long time to clean it up. It has a lot of flash on it. There aren't a lot of mold lines, so it's just getting all the tiny little bits and pieces of resin off and trying to be careful not to shave too much resin off, because obviously you don't want to destroy something that was meant to be there. I think it was quite tricky at times finding out how much to take off, it's something that you need to work on, and I would not recommend buying a Forge World model as one of the first kits that you're gonna work on, just because it has it has a higher sort of skill level, I think, than assembling plastic models. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, but of course you're always free to do whatever you want. You'll also notice here, I don't know if it's not that easy to see here on the video, but there are just a ton of tiny bits and pieces of resin, sort of like flash in between even the tiniest details. This is the end of the spear, and again, this just takes a lot of time to get out, and also because the pieces in between are so fragile and so delicate that if you try to just push through, it will, I mean, you really risk breaking the model and breaking off some of the details, which would be a shame because the details are gorgeous. So of course you want to preserve them, but it just takes a lot of time and you really need to be careful with it. After I had cleaned up the model, I washed it in some hot water and some dish soap, and that's because this is a resin model and there is often some chemicals like a release agent that makes sure that you can get the models out of the mold, and that release agent might make it a bit difficult for paint to stick well to the model, so you need to wash it before you start priming and painting it. Then I started building it, and I used, of course, super glue, because this is resin and not plastic, so you can't use plastic glue. And I noticed that there were some gaps that needed filling afterwards, and for that I used, as you can see here, a little bit of Milliput. I don't think it was too bad. It wasn't like huge gaps where you need to have a degree in fine arts to actually make the model work. It was just something that needed to be done, and it took a little bit of time, but I didn't notice anything that was, you know, too bad or too time consuming, just something that needed to be done as well. And here you can see what the model looks like next to a Space Marine. This is a Primaris Space Marine, and I think sort of the lower part of the body is a little bit taller than the Space Marine on its own, just like the snaky parts of the body, and the upper part of the torso more or less just matches the height of a Space Marine. And here you can see the body with the wings. It's not attached because I'm going to be painting this in sub-assemblies. I think it would be a nightmare trying to actually paint this with the wings attached. And you can see here, this is a Demon Prince, and he's got some nice, relatively big wings, but they are quite small next to Fulgrim's wings. They're quite a bit smaller actually, and they have a completely different texture as well. So I thought you might want to see what it looked like. This is the Demon Prince is, yeah, I'm using some some putty to just make Fulgrim stay together, because as I said, I'm painting him in sub-assemblies, but he's quite a bit taller than the Demon Prince. He's also a little bit more lean. He's not a very like chunky boy, but that of course matches the whole snake vibe anyway. And here you can see him next to the new Radio Dreadnought. Again, he's taller, but he's also a lot more slim, so he doesn't seem... He seems a little bit smaller than he actually is, because he is such a slim model. Here is next to one of the snaky girls from Daughters of Cain for Age of Sigmar, if you wanted to compare that to the size of this model. And I also have him here next to a Kurnoth Hunter, which is sort of an in-between sized model for the Sylvaneth for Age of Sigmar as well. And I also want to show him next to a knight. The only knight I currently have is a Chaos Knight, but I think, I mean, the size is approximately the same, I think. So here you have my very colorful Chaos Knight, and next to him you have here Fulgrim. So you can see Fulgrim on his own. Yeah, and I know the quality of the footage here is a little bit blurry because, of the webcam and stuff, but you can still see the height, I hope. So he's definitely not quite as tall on his own as a knight, but if you then add in the wings, I'll just take a wing here. Okay. Gotta be careful, I don't want to drop anything. You can see that the wing on its own is actually just slightly taller than the knight, and the wing would perhaps be attached like here. So he's definitely taller with the wings attached than a knight, but then obviously also a lot slimmer, because a knight is, you know, a really chunky boy. So there you have it. There you have the size comparison. And I just want to finish this video off with just my first impressions of working with a Forge World model. And the first thing that really grabbed my eye was definitely the details and the crispness of the resin. It really looks beautiful. Then I was not quite as pleasantly surprised by the amount of work and time I had to put into actually making this model ready for being built and painted. It took quite a long time, a lot longer than I had expected, and I also found the instructions to be not quite as easy to follow as I would have liked. I also, of course, have to admit that building models is my least favorite part of the hobby, so I'm a little bit negatively biased against stuff like this. The easier it is, the happier I am, and I didn't really particularly enjoy building him, I have to admit, but then again, I never really particularly enjoy building anything, and this was just a little bit more difficult, and I had to just be a little bit more careful with what I did, and so I think I prefer working with plastic. But I do think, I mean, if you really want sort of like the most excellent crisp model you can get, perhaps resin is still actually the way to go. So yeah, now I have him built as far as I could, because as I said, I want to paint him in sub-assemblies. I think attaching the wings before you start painting would be really difficult. Perhaps you can, and perhaps that would make some things, perhaps if you're using an airbrush or something, it would be a little bit quicker and a little bit easier, but I think it would be difficult because the wings are attached to the body not that much, and perhaps you should pin it before attaching it to make it just a little bit more sturdy, because as I also just briefly touched upon, I mean, this model with, I only have one of the wings right now. Like this model with this wing, I don't know how you're going to be transporting it. Honestly, it's gorgeous, and it's going to be a lot of fun to paint, and I really look forward to painting it. But if you're actually going to be wanting to use it in games, I think you have to come up with something brilliant in order for it to be transported safely. Perhaps if you just have one of those magnetized racks or something, you might be able to do it. But yeah, it's something to consider before you buy it if you want to use it as a gaming piece. That would be my advice, at least. But now I have it built, I have it primed, and I now gotta figure out how to paint it. So I'm not really quite sure yet. I don't know if I want to use my airbrush. I'm not great with an airbrush, but perhaps it would work really well, particularly on the wings, or if I should just go with my speed paints or contrast paints like I usually do, and then just take it from there. So if you have any thoughts or suggestions, any ideas for color schemes, please let me know, and hopefully you can help me get inspired so that I can move on from the building part of Fulgrim to actually painting him. I'm quite looking forward to that. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!